You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. All right, excited for tonight. Look, I put my hand up and say I know a lot about New South Wales, but struggle sometimes when it comes to the other states and territories. So I thought, well, who better to get on than someone down there in Tassie who knows their stuff and is representing the shooting and hunting community in a really positive light. So tonight I've got Phillip Bigg from SFFB. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you going?
I'm good. Been looking forward to this one. We've been chatting for a couple of weeks now and trying to work out a time. And there's a few things going on down there which I would like to hear from you. But, mate, do you want to give everybody a bit of your background, how you got into politics? You know, it's something that I don't know too many people that want to put their hand up to get into it. So I love that you have, but how did that all come about?
Yeah, look, I've always had a thing about politics for many years, and it was kind of strange how I came about this. So I was actually approached by someone who was running in a local government election for the council and asked to put their sign up. And this was like a half-cycle election because others had to leave or had left. And so I helped out with that, and then we came up to a new term election, and the pressure was on. Oh, you should put your name in the hat for a council election. And I kind of ummed and ahed for a long time, and I was like, I don't know. And then I bit the bullet, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to fully immerse myself into the politics rather than just sitting there bitching and moaning. You know, everyone's going to do it, bitch and moan about it. But until you really involve yourself, you don't know the ins and outs of it and how incredibly stressful it is. So, yeah, I ran for the council election, and I was only there to bolster other candidates, I guess you could say. Obviously, I was still in it to win it to a degree. But I just wanted the representation for the people more so, rather than people's own agendas, which you kind of see in most elections, whether it's local government or state or federal. So, yeah, I just went from there. Obviously, I missed out on that because I'm not an elected official. And a few months went by. I was approached by the committee of the Shooters, Fishers, Farmers Party and asked if I would like to come along. I took that opportunity. I wasn't sure where it was going to lead. It was a very interesting one, not really being involved in a state-level politics or anything like that. So I took that role on, and it wasn't long before there was an AGM, actually. But during that time, so like the last 16 months, there was the Firearms Amendment Community Safety Bill 2023 in Tasmania, which was pretty big. Like, some of the changes in there were, you know, they made some serious changes. Safer and SSAA and countless amounts of people put in submissions, and unfortunately it wasn't recognised by, I guess you could say, the commissioner or the minister or the government at the time, so nothing really changed. So I was fighting pretty hard with that, and then we had the AGM, and I became secretary of the Tasmania party, and it's been interesting because we've gone through a state election. I went for the Legislative Council election, all within, they kind of overlapped each other too, because we had the state election, and then there was like that overlapping period where I was running for the state election, knowing that I was going to be going for the PROSA Legislative Council election. It's like, well, how do you run two elections at once? It was really, really unreal. So yeah, that's kind of how I've become where I am now. I'm glad I've done it, because the information I've put out there that a lot of people have seen, not just even Tasmania, Australia-wide, some people internationally as well, to get that information out there that they wouldn't have otherwise known has been a really good goal and an achievement of some sorts. I'm hoping to do what I can to represent the people as best as possible, if you know what I mean. So it's a tricky one, but as my family always bitched at me, he's like, oh, you're going to complain about politics, but you're not going to get involved. So here I am.
Credit to you, because it is hard. I look at it and go, long hours. You're not going to please everybody. So there's a lot of hate and a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
A lot of support too. Let's be honest. But like it's one of those things, and I keep saying to people, if you're not invested in politics and you're not going to, whether it be vote, whether it be help out, whether it be have opinions, share opinions, I get people say it's a touchy subject, but it really does shape your life.
It really does. And a lot of people don't understand, like, you're a voter, you're just complaining about the choices made in politics, for instance. As someone like myself who has run in elections, it is gut-wrenching, it's sickening, you're anxious all the time, you're in the spotlight all the time. It's just really hard to describe the feeling, and when it's over, it's like, oh, thank God. Even though you you haven't won the election, it's like it really takes a toll on you. And then, once you're elected, obviously, it's a different toll again. And I've got to say, it's been an eye-opening experience going through this. You put up a post, you have the people against you, the people with you. It's really, really something different. I don't recommend it for most people.
I'd say you'd have to be pretty resilient and pretty thick-skinned, because especially I think in the current climate, I feel politics is so polarised these days. And I do feel 20 years ago, people could have those conversations even if you were sort of on either side, and it was much easier to see the other person's point of view. And it just feels, and I attribute it to social media, that you just get fed whatever the algorithm wants to feed you, whether it be to trigger you with the far opposite to your viewpoint, or that, they push your sort of far point of view as well. That is a problem, and I do feel it's getting worse, and I do feel that is something going forward where it's going to make it difficult for everyone, for both sides too. Like that, finding that middle ground, being able to negotiate and talk. So I think it's really important that the people getting involved in politics do have that demeanour that a lot of people don't understand. You can't sort of just bang your hands on the table and shout and yell, and I know sometimes we see that, but realistically, you've got to be able to negotiate and talk and be able to compromise and have that side of it. But you've got to be doing it also to please your constituents. Tricky as.
Yeah, real tricky. I mean, like with the state election, for instance, in Tasmania, we had the Liberal Party call an early election, and it became about the AFL stadium down here at Hobart with the Macquarie Point. Me personally, an election should never have been about that. I mean, to be so divisive, and like you're saying, like last 2 decades of politics, with social media especially, it's so easy to get caught up in that divisive narrative, rather than actually taking a step back, getting away from that emotive response of something that you agree with, and look at things as a whole. And I don't think people do that anymore, because technology now has made us so short-sighted. We're looking at the now rather than the long term, and that's a big problem for us as like recreational hunters, sports shooters, and everything else in between, because we're not recognizing the flow-on effects in the future, and that's a big impact that we're going to feel very soon. So,
well, it's that generation of instant gratification.
Yeah.
Social media has done that. You think about Instagram, Snapchat, whichever one you use, it doesn't matter. They are literally designed, even your streaming services, that you log on and they're quickly giving you snaps and music and clips to capture your attention and hold it.
Well, I mean, it's the same with like news. News and journalism isn't the same as what it once was. It's all get it up now and click this link, and there's no real integrity, I think, in journalism like there used to be, and that's a part of the issues we face forward now in politics. You're not getting the full story, you're getting half a story, quarter of a story, or even a made-up story to get politicians themselves to be clickbaited into reacting. It's a real issue.
Well, that clickbait, you're exactly right. I can't remember. There was a great example. Like, it was on social media, but it was the same news outlet, and they literally within 30 minutes they'd posted the exact same story, but from two different political viewpoints.
Yeah.
And it was just like the way it was written, and even the clickbait for it, they were so polar opposite, designed to either attract which side of politics someone was on. And it was just like, that's not journalism. Like, where's the, like, it's supposed to be non-biased, just represent the facts, let people make their own decisions. That has definitely gone. And in fairness, I'm not calling one of the other sides here. They're all the same now. I think it's possibly a monetary thing, that they're that desperate to get money, the clickbait, the paywalls, that they need to do everything they can just to capture people, to suck them in to pay. That's a problem.
Yeah, and that flows into politics too, which is a real issue because Tasmania is a bit of a different scope of politics. And then when you bring in the media, I don't want to get into too much of the background of how it operates with the media and politics in Tasmania, but it's not exactly a level and fair playing field, mostly because of that monetary value. For instance, I think it was a half-page ad in a country newspaper was about $2,500. Now, if we look at the state election, we've seen both parties putting up full-page ads in major newspapers, which we could imagine would be easily double what a half-page ad. How does someone like myself from the Shooters, Fishers, Farmers Party Tasmania, who have no money, it's very hard to get members because unless you're elected, it's hard for people to see the value for money for paying for that membership. And they don't realise the advocacy and the time spent that goes into everything that you do. I mean, I've been up, when I was briefing the Legislative Council last year, I was up till 3 o'clock every morning, writing letters, trying to do what I can to fight the changes. It's a hard battle to go down, like, I don't know where you can really draw that line, and until politics changes, I think the monetary value is just a real issue.
Oh, couldn't agree more there. I have said for a long time, I don't like the two-party system.
No.
Because it restricts, I feel, what is actually in the best interest of Australians, because they have some ideological bias that they want to promote or push or whatever that might be. And they have all the funds and they have all the major contributions, and then they have the money to push smaller people out, even though that person could be far better for the community. They have less opportunity to promote themselves and get out and about and win. So it's, I respect what you're doing, because that's a tough slog in not being one of the two the two main parties.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. That's a major problem within itself, because people are then held back. And honestly, I talk to a lot of people, and when elections come up, I go, do you actually go into each party and see their policies? Do you read them? Do you actually have a good, strong look so you know what you're voting for? And most people don't, which I get. It's not a glamorous subject, but it affects your day-to-day life so drastically. And, I don't get it. For me, I'd love to have as much control over my life and how good or bad it's going to be. And I'd love more people to take such an interest, at least. So when it comes up, don't just walk up and get the flyer and go, I'm going to go vote for them. Have some knowledge of who you're voting for, what they stand for, what are their policies and things like that. That's a tricky one. As I said, it's not a glamorous subject. People sometimes don't care, or they think it's not going to change. That's the other problem with the two big parties. People go, it's not going to change that much. Like, does it matter if it's Liberal or Labor? We're going to sort of get screwed either way. And
then you go, well, why aren't you voting for me?
Well, and so this is the interesting one too, because you mentioned before that you put your hand up to, you were in it, but you knew that the chances of getting elected are probably pretty slight.
Oh, yeah.
And the votes then go in, I'm guessing, the second sort of tier, second party preference model, or that my mate's wife did it for the Greens, and she ran in her area, and it was more to get those numbers for the party and to hopefully get enough that some money was taken back to the party as well. And
see, Tasmania is different, actually.
Okay, cool. I'd love to hear about it.
We've got like a Hare-Clark system, so we don't have like the preference deals and things like that. So we had a big issue with the state election. We had a lot of people going, in Victoria, you sided with Labor on this and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but that was Victoria. That's a completely different system. So you're not going to get that certain amount of votes, and like you're saying with your friend in the Greens, to try and help the party by getting those numbers. It doesn't work that way in Tasmania, because your votes is your votes, and then once those votes counted, the preferences get distributed by your number 2, number 3. So there's no above the line. There's no like box ticking of Labor, Greens, Liberal, and that's what's confusing the people, is how your preferences flow, and it makes it really tricky for a lot of people, because they've moved to Tasmania from the mainland as well. So they don't quite fully understand how the system works. Hell, half the time I don't even understand how the system works.
That sounds interesting. I actually think that sounds like a far better system than
it's meant to be.
Preferences.
Yeah, so the idea is that you're voting more for the person in preferences. So you can go from, say you put me number 1, hopefully, and then number 2 you went for like one person from the Greens, and then number 3 you went one person from Labor, and next person for Liberals. I think it's 1 to 7, or so you have to do a minimum, and then you can go the full box check. There's no above the line, which it is fairer to one degree. But then how the preferences flow, it gets so messy, so confusing, so quick. Like, your preferences can go to someone you never even thought of.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up with people elected that no one ever seen coming.
Well, I mean, I think that was Georgie Purcell. They're over in Vic for AJP. I think she only, don't quote me exactly, but I think it was only like 1,600 votes or 1,800 votes, and she got in. And people are going, hold on, that's not that many. I'd love to see a system where there's no preferences. One vote, I want that person. Whoever gets the most is the person that gets in. That would be, I feel that probably is the better system, because I'm voting for that person or that party. I don't want it to go anywhere else, because it's sort of like a smoke and mirrors sort of system that, a lot of people don't understand what's going on, and they don't understand that vote there could go there, and it's just such a confusing thing for the average person that doesn't care about politics.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it just go, you know what, I like that person, I'm voting for that person or that party, done.
Yeah, it kind of, the Hare-Clark system kind of works like that in some regard. Like, so you want that one person, that's your number 1. And then you have your primary numbers from there, and then your secondary, and so on. And it goes down to those people as those preferences get distributed. So whoever's, knocked out, whoever has the least amount of votes knocked out, their preferences are recounted and distributed in order of their number 2. So those numbers go to the next person. So it's like an exclusion tally, and it does make sense to some degree. And I totally appreciate where you come from. It's like, I want that guy number 1. And it's kind of like that system, but it's just a bit more complicated, and it is really confusing to explain how it works.
We don't want to bore people. That's I probably do that enough anyway, so don't want to do that. Mate, what else is going on down there? There was something pop up the other day about the fallow deer. They're always in the news down there about the numbers of deer and what they can do about that.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. It was some sort of plan wanting to be put in, I believe. Are you aware what's going on, like a current thing?
So what they've been doing is, last year they had, they've got a deer plan, and last year was the enactment of the aerial deer culling program, May last year, and that was in the walls of Jerusalem. where it's a hard to reach area, and the numbers were supposedly incredibly high and World Heritage area, that type of stuff, and they want to protect it, which I can totally appreciate. But they slaughtered like over 700 deer. No holds bars, just kill, kill, kill. I mean, I can't really agree with it because it's such a waste of resources. We've got so many people starving, hungry, and we're just spending $1 million to go and fly a helicopter around and knock these deer out. It's just disgraceful. And it breaks my heart even more because when you look at the Seeker Foundation in New Zealand, and they go around, pick these deer up, and they donate it to food banks and everything, and people getting something out of it for nothing. That's heartwarming. That's really good stuff. And I think they've donated over 5,000 kilos so far of venison to food banks. That's an achievement. That's a great achievement. And it's just not happening here. They don't want to know about it. They don't want to talk about it. They'd just rather waste millions of dollars doing it. So that was last year. And then we just concluded another one where they knocked out another 300 plus deer at the walls again. And I mean, at least it's one thing. It's not like 1080. They're not poisoning them and killing everything else at the same time. You got to be thankful for that at least. But I mean, we're looking at 1,000 deer just killed in a controlled program out of aerial culling. That's just not really good enough, I don't think. And I've been trying to fight it and raise awareness about it and what we could be and should be doing. The government comes out saying it's not feasible to get these deer out. It's like, that's absolute bullshit. I think, what was it, about a week or two ago, I uploaded a photo from New Zealand. They've got like 6 stags hanging off this tiny little helicopter being dragged. It's like, of course we can be doing it. Stop lying to us.
100%. And while you were talking about that, I hope I'm not coming across rude, but I was desperate to find it. A mate's wife, shout out to Kel, appreciate you tagging me in this. Over in New Zealand, there's a trust. It's called the Hope Community Trust.
Yeah.
And they have just supplied, in 18 months, 40,000 meals for families in need across Canterbury. And I just sit there, and so they call it sort of the Hunters for Hope. And what a sensational idea. So they've donated 3.5 ton of venison to date. What, man, like, why are we spending so much money?
Yeah.
And it's a waste. It's taxpayers' money that's completely wasteful. I was talking to a mate the other day, and even my wife, I know down in Vic, the food banks, or what do they call them? Food soup shelters or soup kitchens, whatever you want to call them. I know up here in Sydney it's the same. I know the one here in Sydney is actually used to open at like 6 or 7. Now it's opening at like 5:30. It's opening earlier because they've got that many more people to feed.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's like the cost of living has gone skyrocketed because of whatever's going on. I don't get why we're just throwing money away and we're not looking at all these viable options. And I just released one with Frank the other day about the new feral game sort of plan here in New South Wales by our LLS, or Local Land Services. And aerial culling just keeps popping up there. And
it's everywhere.
I just sit there and just go, why are you throwing money at this? Like, you call ground shooting opportunistic. Okay, get that. Well, you know what? You know what's not opportunistic? Put in bait stations and let people shoot over them on properties. They're going to use the meat. They're not going to leave it there to rot. How the hell are we saying let's shoot them from a chopper, not recover them? Oh, geez, the pest populations for other species that we're still targeting in this plan, they're not going to feed on that and grow? Like, it's almost like it's smoke and mirrors that they don't really want to wipe out or do much. It's just like, oh, we're going to put this in place to get it done. I don't know. It confuses me as if they're really trying to wipe out a species. And I don't think they'll ever wipe out any of them, to be honest. I know there's different fears. Well, I actually am not worried about the aerial culling, that side of things. I'm not a fan of poison, and that's more from an ethical side of things.
Oh, totally.
I am more nervous where science is leading, that at some stage there will be something out there that just can neuter the species that's transmissible, that it might be the next generation. They just birth animals that no longer can reproduce.
Well, look,
that's what I'm
rabbits.
scared of.
I mean, look what they've done to them.
I get that people go, they're feral and they're introduced. Get it. But, I mean, there is good to them. And you need to be able to see through that and be a bit more pragmatic and go, the goal of just wiping them out, in my mind, is silly because, A, I don't think it'll ever get achieved. B, let's look at the animal and go, hey, is it got some sort of value? Like, we can't even wipe out cane toads and they don't have any value as far as I'm concerned. And yet we've got deer that can feed a lot of people that are doing well on our landscape. So why are we not using them? But I mean, the same argument goes for kangaroos. Like, I love the fact that down there you guys can take out wallabies. Like, that makes sense. I have zero understanding how we still can't hunt kangaroos in a state forest, that it has to be on private property for culling. We've got so many numbers. Like, do a tag system, whatever it takes, but I'd love to be able to hunt them in state forests and be able to use the meat. I don't understand why we didn't. Like, my ancestors did that for a long time. They didn't get wiped out. We could definitely manage it and do it well. And to the point where we not overpopulate, keep the animals in check. Baffling.
I mean, there's so much to unpack just from what you said there. Like, the deer, for instance, it's really funny that we have this resource and they're spending millions of dollars to kill them. And then if you really add up the total value of letting them rot in the ground, we're probably looking at another $500,000, because if you go to a deer farm and say, I want the back straps out of that and the legs off that, how much is that going to cost you? Because they're not cheap.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right.
So if you're looking at that, and then there's also the health benefits of people not starving, because as we know, people starving are often generally sicker, and that puts more strain on the health system. So it just keeps going, that flow-on effect from one simple act of being able to use cold meat, as long as they didn't put 3 or 4 rounds in it and completely obliterate it. So there's that aspect. But another part that you were talking about, the greens, for instance, you know, they want them eradicated, and they want trout completely gone in Tasmania as well. Although they don't quite have the smarts to differentiate between the native trout and the introduced trout. We won't go there. But so, you know, the greens want the deer gone. And the greens themselves, you know, they jump up and down about native tree logging and stuff like that, and I can appreciate that. They jump up and down about the swift parrot, you know, because of logging. But yet, when it comes to 1,000 deer being slaughtered, not ethical kills, rounds just put in them to put them down, not a peep. I mean, how wrong is that? That is so hypocritical of them. And we have never seen any Greens member in any state jump up and down saying this is unethical. How can that be? I really don't understand them, how they are so silent on this. I mean, it just goes to show that hunters have more of an ethical stance than the Greens do when it comes to animal welfare. Because me as a hunter, I want that one shot, one kill, clean, cut, done. I don't want to see an animal suffer, and it's not nice, especially when you stand in front of one. And yet these Greens are letting it happen to the deer, pigs, the brumbies. It's insane. I really can't wrap my head around it. And I actually had this argument about an elected member in Tasmania after he put a post up. And I said, so you're saying that this is humane? And didn't really want to answer that.
Shock horror.
Yeah, it's the total hypocrisy, and they just go silent. So, yeah, look, I think we should be doing better. And the bait stations, they should be made illegal, because we've had instances where they've been put out and they've wiped everything out. One place I go, there was a plethora of wallaby, wombats, you name it, and they just got destroyed.
Oh, you're talking about poison base stations, I'm guessing.
Yeah, 1080. And it's happened quite a lot of times. And farmers still can apply for that permit in Tasmania and use it. I think a lot of farmers understand the negative effects now, so they're a bit hesitant to go down that path. They'd rather, try and get some shooters on there. But at the same point, having shooters on your field, there are farmers that want you to cough up some dough to be able to go in there and get a deer. And, it's like, well, do you want the problem fixed or not? Would you rather those numbers culled, or would you rather make $1,000 of each person per year? What's more important to you, your farmland or making a short profit? So there's so many issues we can look at. And no one wants to talk about the fact that, like you're saying, it's so good to have wallaby down here, we can just go free for all on them. The numbers are huge. I mean, there's like roadkill everywhere. No one ever wants to talk about the impact that wallaby have on the farms, because they do, and the rabbits do too. But no, they would rather concentrate on the deer and saying the deer are the problems. They're the ones causing all the havoc. It's just nonsense. There's so many things, and there's reports done on it. People just don't want to look at it.
Yeah, and a couple of different things there. You talked about the cost of venison, and mate, there's so many that I don't think the numbers are actually accurate. There is the outlay, what we pay for the aerial culling. But as you said, then there's the cost of the meat that's rotting. And someone sent me one the other day. It was either $38.99 or $42.99, and it was at like a local market per kilo. So was that
Australian deer?
Yeah. It was in. Don't quote me. I think it was out. It was a fair either down in Victoria or here in New South Wales. I was just trying to find the photo. I can't find it, but I'm confident it was about $38.99 a kilo. For venison, and
because they're importing venison into Australia.
No.
Yeah.
Look,
it's in Tasmania too.
It would not shock me in the slightest.
Another one of my pet peeves is biosecurity, but they're importing venison from other countries.
Oh, God almighty.
Yeah, and they actually don't package it with where it's come from or what type of deer it is either.
No, I did not know that. Thank you for informing me, because that is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. We complain about the numbers here, but let's pay a fortune to shoot them, not use it, and let's import from somewhere else where we could create jobs, create more money for Australians. That's more tax for the government as well. It's a revolving sort of door there that, that baffles me again.
One of our candidates and committee members actually had the deer farm in Tasmania, one of the deer farms. And we were talking about biosecurity and the importation risk of things, as like what happened up in, I think it's Northern Queensland or the Territory with the black spot on the prawns.
Yep.
And our worry in Tasmania is because we're so good with our protectiveness, but yet we're importing meat from other countries. That's and dumb. Deer especially. It's like, what the hell?
Look, I appreciate having to import stuff that we haven't got here to an extent, and I have never got why we bring in inferior produce of whatever it is, and our farmers can't compete with it. That has been something I really can't get my head around from a variety of different angles.
Yeah.
But then not just that, we are in the greatest position out of any country, in my opinion, because we're a continent. Our borders are pretty damn secure because they're ocean.
They should be.
They should be, but not when you are bringing it in and selling it. That's unreal. But when you're talking about that stuff too, you're talking about missed opportunities for ecotourism. You're talking about missed opportunities for at the cost, jobs, taxes. It's not just the fact that aerial culling operation might cost $1 million, because it's costing a lot more than that $1 million, because there's so many other avenues that you could pursue and make good money. Put it back into the local economy, put it back into, the country. And it's probably a lot more than, what's in a helicopter, the pilot, a shooter, a backup shooter, maybe someone watching that it's all going down relatively well. I think that's what they do in SA. And we know how that's going. That's not ideal. So, it's frustrating. I think that one thing you struggle with, is that some of these decisions, you just sit there, scratch your head and go, how is this made by a sane person? Are they that far detached from what's happening and just getting fed rubbish? Or like, how do they come to these conclusions?
Look, one of the things that really pisses me off is, and it's one of the things that I fight really hard about, I should say, is that there was a report done by the government, and it was an economic report about shooters in Tasmania. And it said we contribute more than $88 million a year to the Tasmanian economy. Right, and those numbers were low because if you actually look at the report, it said things like, I think it was 6.9 litres per 100k spent on diesel. That is rubbish.
What car's that?
I don't know, but I mean, like, my old, I got my Mazda Bravo 2.5 litre, and if I was sitting on 6.9 litres, I'd be one happy man, especially when you're in the bush.
I filled up today. It cost me $140. I'd love to be getting 6.9. I got a Triton. I'd love to be getting that off diesel. What a load of shit that is.
Yeah, that's just off the top of my head. But anyway, so when you look at the numbers are essentially going to be over 100 million, and if you include inflation and everything else too, it's going to be pretty high. So we have $100 million plus economic input from shooters in Tasmania, and if we really invested in that for recreational hunters alone, right, we'll start there, and we gave more land, more opportunity for hunters to get out there and look at these deer, for instance. Not only would, we not have rotting carcasses and waterways from aerial culling, as much as they say it doesn't happen. We have a photo that I posted on Facebook that you would have seen. We would have more of an economic stimulus for those regional towns, those small towns, those takeaway shops, small servos, because anyone who goes out there and does a trip generally is going to stop off and buy something hot to eat because it's bloody cold. And while they're there, they might get a couple other supplies, or they might see in the corner some homemade lures from old mate who, visits the pub and makes them all. We see that all around Tasmania. So there's that side that could bump it up at least another $40 million alone if we invested in that recreational hunting side. And then we look at the sport shooting side. The state government, they've contributed to the SSAA with a couple range things and leases and this and that, but we don't have any major competitions. We don't have anything substantial for sport shooting in Tasmania. It's really quite sad, and what we have and what we could have are completely different. So there's that aspect too. One of the other things too is that in Tasmania, international firearms licenses are not recognised, which a lot of people don't understand. It's just not recognised. Whereas I was speaking to Shooters Union today or yesterday about international hunting licenses, international firearms licenses in Queensland. Apparently, it's like quite easy to do. It's like, that's sweet, nothing, no problem. But yet, as far as I understand, an international hunter has not been allowed to enter Tasmania since April of last year. So there was a bloke I was speaking to who actually tried to set up a business in Tasmania to bring in international hunters, which is a huge economic stimulus for small areas. I mean, you've got people accommodation for a week or two, and these guys aren't just shooters and hunters, they're fishermen. They're outdoorsmen. They want to see everything. They want to be here for a week, 2 weeks, a month. So the money that they're going to bring in is huge. But yet, the exemption won't be given to this man who was trying to set this business up. Why?
The red tape.
It's not even red tape. It's just essentially the exemptions are from the commissioner, and the commissioner cited public safety. Now, the way I see it is if you have a firearms license, first of all, you're a fit and proper person, whatever the hell that's meant to mean, because that comes down to whoever decides it. But if you're entering our country, you're obviously not someone that's going to go on a murdering rampage, are you? Like, you're pretty well, most people that come into the country are pretty, law-abiding and checked over. If you have something going on in your own country, you're generally not going to be allowed into another country. So it's a bit troubling that for a state like Tasmania that has great trout fishing, great recreational sea fishing, except for at the moment because of flathead, but we won't go into that. That's a travesty. and great hunting, great landscapes, great walks, everything you could want for a nice outdoors holiday visit. And it's not going to happen because you're not recognised in the Firearms Act. It's unreal. I just don't understand it. No one wants to listen about it either. You can talk about the $88 million and say we could be making another $50 million out of this a year if you actually pulled your fingers out. Nah, don't worry about it. They just don't care.
Do you think it's that stigma? I know, I guess that you guys would have it worse because of Port Arthur, that there's that hesitation to support anything firearms related. Like, I really do feel that there's people that won't put their necks out. Like, I spoke to a local council, one of our local elected representatives here, and he was in the Liberal Party, and he doesn't have a problem with firearms because where I live, it's probably it's probably one of the biggest, number of firearms owners in a region in New South Wales, and he isn't super against them. However, the party lines is. So when you're having those conversations about firearms or suppressors and things like that, he's like, look, they're not. Look, I'm on your side. Now, he, again, could be lying, but he's like, I'm on your side, but there's no way we're getting this through, especially that, Howard's laws were the ones they feel are the golden answer, the golden ticket to fixing everything, and deemed as this great success. So no one wants to counteract that, and then anyone supporting it is almost going against that golden ticket. That, I know, I get that feeling up here, and that causes a lot of issues such as suppressors and things like that, because that still baffles me. How the hell you can have a firearm, be deemed that you're safe to use one, but we're really worried about you with a suppressor making it quieter to snipe a police officer. That I do not get that. Like, that to me is just so dumb. Either you're safe enough to have a firearm or you're not. Isn't that sort of black and white? Like, okay. Anyway, that's a different story. But do you think that is? Do you face that down there? Is that Port Arthur being that one that they'd go to, or they maybe don't want to hear because of that?
Look, the media use the Port Arthur tragedy any chance they can. Yeah. It's a go-to for them, and it's not just Tasmania or Australia. It's actually used around the world all the time. If you want to look into it, it's mentioned all the time around the world as the kind of poster child for gun control.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, the numbers of firearms incidences were already going down before Port Arthur. If you look at the data, they were well and truly going down. It was just inevitable that it was going to go down even further over time. It's just that you hit 96 and it just went pew. So yes, it is a bit of a problem. The real issue we face, especially in Tasmania, anything firearms related, like today, this morning, first thing I see in my feed from some media outlets and Tasmania Police, a 23-year-old man from Campania was charged with firearms offences, burglary offences, and for shooting a protected fur seal that caused its death, inevitably. And they highlight these things all the time. Anytime firearms offences happen in Tasmania, there it is in the media, every single time. But yet, we're lucky to hear about, I can't remember his name, was it Blake or something, who was going to compete internationally to represent Australia. And he had an interview on ABC Radio Hobart, and that was pretty much it. And it's like, where are you going with this? You're just going to continually go with a negative narrative and not support young athletes that are in the safest sport in the world. You see paramedics at AFL games, but you don't see paramedics at a trap shooting. It's absolutely crazy. So we have that constant fear-mongering of firearms, and the whole suppressor talk, like I was given the opportunity to brief the Legislative Council on the Firearms Amendment Bill last year, and it was brought up, a question was put to me about a rooftop sniper using a suppressor and you wouldn't be able to tell where it comes from. I said, well, if you have someone shooting from a rooftop in a city, irrespective of a suppressor or not, the reverberations in the city are going to be so big you wouldn't be able to tell where it comes from anyway. So it's like these people who decide on these issues don't really have a full understanding of how it works. And I even said in the briefing that on average, a suppressor will drop the decibels by 30. So if you have a 308, you're probably shooting at about 190 odd decibels. It might bring it down to 160 if you're lucky. That is still loud enough. You're going to be able to pinpoint where it comes from out in the bush. The issue I raise is that, yes, you have hearing protection. This is what you're talking about with Frank, about the dogs and the hearing protection. It's like, well, you could say that the dogs have hearing protection now, but that's not safe for the dog. And it's just like us walking around the bush. If we have hearing protection in, even with those electronic ones where the sounds are amplified, you still don't have that 3D concept of where sounds are coming from. And it makes it a real hazard when you're walking, because you can't tell where that crack of a stick came from that you might have stepped on, So all of these things, whereas if you're able to walk around freely and have a suppressor on, you're lowering that 30 decibel rating. And when you take that shot, that reverberation through the trees isn't going to kill you. Not long ago, I have a 300 WSM Browning lever action, and it's a lightweight stainless, so it really has some kick. And I was in an open field, but I was right next to a fallen log. I took that shot, and the reverb coming off that log that was right next to me killed me. But if I had that suppressor, it would still have been loud as hell, but it wouldn't have shocked me. And that's the difference. And they seem to think that because the Hollywood stereotype of silence a suppressor, it's just nonsense. I mean, if you have a little handgun that you're shooting 22 subs, then maybe it'll be quiet like a pew pew. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about large bore rifles here.
Yeah.
And I'm not advocating for 22s to have suppressors. I'm advocating for 243, 308, 338, proper stuff that really hurts you.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the tricky one. I just think sometimes I feel that the media, want reactions, either good or bad, because they're trying to sell a product and they want that reaction and that emotive language and emotive response. Then I feel that sometimes it's what's palatable. No one wants to put their hand up and go, suppressors are just a sensible decision because it's not palatable to the general public who do not understand suppressors. That's a big problem. The education side of the general population is probably something that has diminished. You go back 50, 60 years, people walked around with a gun on the trains, it wasn't, that was just common sort of practice. That has gone because it was just a common tool for life. Now that has really diminished. Okay, more in rural areas, not so much, but definitely in the cities. And then you've got the other issue is that the cities have the biggest voter bases. And then that is another problem when we talk about votes and who gets elected, because the needs of a whole of Australia are very, very different in different places. But people make decisions and numbers are counted, and, that popularity contest is all about those numbers. And so the cities become this uneven playing field for the bush. That's a problem. There's just so many things that need fixing for us to flourish. And that's I don't know how it gets fixed. I don't think it will, to be honest.
Do you reckon a population density quota when it comes to voting might fix it? So you've got this ratio between regional areas and, metropolitan. So say that one vote in the city is equal to 0.2 of a vote of someone in the country, maybe.
Yeah. I think there has to be something done, because if you've got, let's just take example of Greens candidate. And up here in New South Wales, you go around the Surrey Hills area, the inner city, and Greens are pretty well supported because apparently avocado, really good for the environment, and smashed avo on toast, really good. Don't worry about the bees. We support, animals.
Don't worry about the sprays and chemicals.
Yeah, don't worry about that. We can turn a blind eye to that. It's really easy to do. But if you talk to them, they're picking people who are representing them, who then have a say in what goes on out for farmers. And we see so much red tape and legislation that is silly, hamstringing farmers to be successful and do what they do best by people that have no idea. So I can see something along those lines. That wouldn't be the worst idea. Or looking at it and going, I know it's been thrown around Queensland for a long time, is they want to split the state in two, like a north and a south, because some want daylight savings, some don't. It makes sense for farmers to not, I think it's not have daylight savings, but it makes sense for people working to have it, because if they're in Brisbane, they need to be liaising with other people during work hours. So it doesn't work where they make one rule for the whole state, especially such a vast difference in north and south and then inland as well. Yeah. It's almost like I don't want to say it, but like I don't want 52 states. But you know what I mean? Like, having a look at it and going in the region and going, okay, well, why have we got Sydney officials or, politicians, ministers, I should say, making decisions for people out in the bush when they've probably never even been out there? They've never stepped foot on a cattle farm, but they're going to make decisions on what impacts those farmers when they're ill-informed. And they might have some bias because of their supporter base where they are, because they got to get re-elected. That's an issue. That's something that I don't know, maybe you change the way something similar to what you just said with the numbers being skewed on doing it in Parliament with the politicians. If you're an inner city politician, you don't, like, your vote towards something that affects the country might be a 0.1 compared to their 1 or something along those lines.
I mean, something's got to change because, even here in Tasmania, there are things voted on that affects farmers here, and we're only a small state. Things are voted on that affect farmers in a drastic way. And some of these people haven't got a single clue. We're currently looking at the implementation by January of the electronic ID tags, which I know is in South Australia and stuff like that. And they claim it's for biosecurity, which is funny in itself that we are an island state and they want to be able to track and trace any outbreaks, but we shouldn't have any outbreaks because of being an island. That's what I was talking about before, like bringing stuff in. It's absolutely crazy. So they bring these things in with no real understanding, and all that's going to happen is the cost goes up on our primary production.
Yep.
Time and time again. These farmers, and like Tas farmers, have actually negotiated with the state government, which is great to, help these farmers have a subsidy. But long term, who's going to be paying for it? The consumers.
Yep.
And time again, the consumers getting screwed by the decisions of people in Parliament who live in the city and don't understand. So we've got to look at fixing that. And the only way to do that is, at the moment, is, elect more people from the country. But then you have the city folk going, what do these people from the country know about the city?
Yeah.
This constant back and forth. But we've got to seriously look at doing something because it's just not working. And the farmers are hurting. They're getting screwed so bad. It's not right.
Oh, no, it's definitely not right. There's two things there. There's one, the meme just comes to mind that it's the photo of the smog-filled city and then this beautiful, lush cow, paddock with the cows, and saying, please tell me how people from here are saying this is doing all the damage down here. Like, that's crazy in itself. But while you were talking about that and biosecurity and just dumb decisions, I keep chickens, and obviously the bird flu or avian flu is quite prevalent, I guess, up here in Sydney. Yep. Apparently.
Yep.
And I think we just had don't quote me the numbers, either 8,000 or 80,000 birds put down. Not super close to where I am, but the rules are that if you are within 2 kilometres of that, I think you've got to put down your flock. Now, here's the kicker, though, is that it's spread by wild birds. Hold on. I've got to put my flock down that may not have it because I'm in a 2 kilometre radius, but these wild birds Maybe they stick to boundaries. I don't know. I mean, I've never seen a wild bird just stay on my property and never leave. Maybe it happens, but they. I just sit there and just scratch my head and go, what the hell are we thinking?
You remember varroa mite?
Yeah, for the bees. Yeah, my next door neighbour keeps bees, and she's telling us all about that because it's around where we live as well.
Same thing.
Yeah. Because you've got to put them all down.
How many stations they put out there in New South Wales and just destroyed the bee population because they were trying to stop varroa mite. It's like, well, you can't.
Because it doesn't affect the whole hive too, from what I was told. It was just like, it's going to wipe out some, but the hive still survives in general. But if you've got to kill them all, it kills them all.
Yeah. Yeah. And what they're doing over there is just obscene. But it's the same thing with that trout parasite that gets carried by birds. Are they going to start killing all the trout?
Yeah. Don't give them ideas.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it's in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, and this is a serious concern I have of mine. Like, we have a massive cormorant problem in Tasmania with trout. Like, if you have a look at some of the videos, they were decimating our trout in the inland lakes, like numbers we've never seen before. Massive concern. Now they're a protected species, even though not that long ago, shooters were given boxes of ammunition to kill the cormorants. I can't make sense of it, and we don't understand how they got on the protected species list to start with. But if we have this trout parasite come to Tasmania and, you know, start infecting our trout here and the birds transmit it, where do we stop? I mean, it's the same thing over and over again. Doesn't matter what disease, what parasite. We're just living that age where things are just going to go wrong because the world's moving too fast and we can't control it.
Yep.
Plain and simply.
Well, and this is the issue. You can talk about all the biosecurity you want in the world, and then when you're looking at, you know, bird flu or whatever, birds migrate.
Yeah.
Like, so I appreciate, hey, do everything you can to stop it. But, you know, from the bird flu, you're talking about, like, I'm sitting there going, all right, you've got to lock your chickens away. They can't get out. You've got to have a roof on them so the wild birds can't crap on them. Oh, but if they crap next to it and it rains, it can get transferred through the poo and the water if it runs into the chicken coop. Okay, so what, now I need drainage around the chicken coop, and that might not stop it either. It just, there's
what about the water
so
tank?
many times. Well, that as well. You can't use them. As they've done all these things, and it's just like, okay, get it. We're trying to restrict it. Do everything you can. Get that. But you can't control the wild birds. No. So, mate, we've got a massive problem here that you're putting these precautions in. Get it. Do that. But if you're starting to wipe birds out, which is sort of where I believe they want to go, if it's close, man, that's silly. Like, you're just, you know, it's going to be close everywhere because birds bloody fly.
Yeah, like I was speaking to a scientist back in, I think, January when this was first detected, and they were saying, I could be completely wrong here, but it was in Antarctica, and then it ended up in South America, and now somehow it's here. That was my understanding of something. I can't understand the geographic flow there. Like, how does it go from Antarctic to South America to here? And I don't know. It seems a bit strange to me, but they know what they're doing. They're professional scientists, and they're just going to kill every chicken because they can.
Yeah. Hey, and look, it's an easy way to do it, I suppose.
Just don't drink your rainwater out of your tank, hey?
No, yeah. Well, that's it. Or go anywhere near wild birds, guys. So maybe just, I don't know, lock yourself in your house.
Look out, Queensland. Bin chickens are a no-go.
Oh, you know what? On bin chickens, Jesus Christ. This is where I get really annoyed when we talk about species that, if they're native, they're just off limits, and the population. And I've been into, you know, my mate's wife girlfriend, whatever they were back then. She used to live in this unit complex, and you'd go in and it's like heaps of units on a suburban street, and there was hundreds of these things in this tree, and the ground was just littered in feces. It was putrid. And now I notice in my area, pretty much everywhere we go, we just see flocks of 20, 30. They're just bloody everywhere. You just can't get rid of them, but you can't touch them. And I don't understand where this mentality. Surely we've got the data, the science, the research there to say, hey, listen, any species that is not hunted, that is not controlled, is going to be a problem. It is going to overpopulate. That's how disease spreads. Let's look at wombats. Let's talk about mange in wombats. A very easy way to control a lot more of it is having less on the landscape in that radius. But it's really hard to get those permits, and it's not good for any population. But that gets removed from the argument, or it's just never there because they're cute, cuddly, native, don't want to hurt the native animals, and, the same as the kangaroos and the emu. Coat of arms, can't leave them because they're a coat of arms. It's a picture on a flag, or a badge, whatever you want to call it. Come on, let's be sensible.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. I mean, the biggest issue we have is us. I mean, look at population density. And,
it's up migration.
Yeah, that's a smart idea. But, I mean, we have these big cities and we have protected species that are developed in those cities. And they're feeding, they're shitting, they're just running amok. And we see the videos, and some of them are just hilarious, where the cockatoos are lifting up bin lids and pulling out nappies. But it's a serious concern. And we are the biggest problem.
100%.
Every day of the week. So we've got to look at how to best work with nature rather than, try and fight nature off. Even though we're going to put them on a protected species list, but don't do anything about it. And we're still building out, we're still building more and more concrete jungles rather than having these green landscapes, parks. When do they start building new parks for kids in new subdivisions? It barely happens now. It's incredible. So we're building these smaller cities that will eventually turn into bigger cities without a care of the world about the nature around us. And then we have all these issues like disease. There's no common sense there. And we've got, in the middle of Hobart, we have rabbits in the CBD. Why? Gee, I wonder. It's not hard to figure that one out. I mean, our major highways just outside the CBD, we've got wallaby on the side of the roads. Why? Because we keep building and building and building, not having these reserves, parklands. And on top of that, we have excess amount of numbers like you're talking about. We're not doing anything about it.
I had to laugh. I love social media and I hate social media, but there was one there that where I live out here in Camden, we've had quite a few incidents of the Nepean River flooding and just the amount of water running through it, and we've had some pretty serious floods. And one of the interesting things was I saw all these comments about, it's climate change. It's climate change. And it's okay. Yeah. So it's not the fact that these probably thousands of hectares of once green landscape have now turned into concrete and houses where the water runs into the same place. It's catching more water and putting it into the same place.
Yeah.
So it can't handle that amount of water and runoff. No, it's got to be climate change. And it's just come on, guys, you've got to start thinking, what are we doing to the landscape? We are just packing people in. We are putting hard surfaces that don't absorb any water. The runoff is quicker. It is feeding into it. Come on, think. I do really feel sometimes that critical thinking ability is getting diminished in our population, and that, again, it's really whatever's sensationalized or whatever's pushed by media or social media, and that people really don't sit back and go, all right, well, what's that? Not to get into this nuclear and solar debate, whatever, but I was chatting to a mate the other day who was saying how dangerous nuclear was. And I was like, okay, about Lucas Heights up here. I lived 25 Ks from it growing up. The whole time I was there, that we've got a nuclear reactor there at Ansto. Oh, what? I was like, mate, come on. Get that's the narrative to sell against nuclear, that it's dangerous. Mate, we've got one at Lucas Heights, which is next to Menai, Cronulla, Liverpool. It's not that far away. It's a 25 kilometre the way the crow flies. But a lot of people don't see that sort of thing, and they don't think about it, and they just think, oh, yeah, this is what is the latest or the greatest or what we're pushing. That's such a problem with and that trickles to what we do. That trickles to shooting and hunting and gathering your own food. And that I have people say to me a lot is that, why don't you just buy it? Why don't you just buy it from the supermarket? And having that conversation of, but what happened to it? I'm not saying something happened to it. I'm saying, what if? You don't know. That's the point. I was like, I like to know that where it's coming from. We grow all our own veggies for that reason. I know what pesticides we don't use on our thing. It scares me the amount of produce I lose to insects, bugs, that our local farms don't. So they're doing something that we're not, where nothing's eating their crop, but they're eating ours. Got to be pesticides. I don't want that on my food. Get it. Sometimes we have to buy it. I'm not saying we're full self-sufficient. I'd love to be, but we're not. But the more we can do, the better. It's got to be better for your health. It's got to be better for the environment. Where is that poison running off? Like, there's elements there that we don't see, or people don't think about, or people don't know. That's a problem. That's hard to change some of those views too, and hard to explain that, hey, I want control of my own. I want that knowledge. I want that ownership. I want that accountability.
Yeah.
I know that animal didn't suffer. Now, not saying that cattle suffer. The opposite. I think, farmers do an absolutely fantastic job in looking after their animals. But you don't know because you weren't there, and you weren't there for any part of the process. You were there to pick it up from Coles or Woolies or IGA or wherever you get your meat from.
In plastic packaging.
That's it. Well, that's the next one. Yeah. But we're not going to use plastic bags, but that plastic's fine. That was
paper straw.
I loved the old Coles and Woolies. We're going to save the environment, guys. We are going to you're going to have to buy plastic bags because we want them to be reused. But here, have the free toy that's made out of plastic. Good job, guys. Well done. You gotta laugh. But mate, let's get into some shooting and some hunting. I mean, look, I did take it quite personal the other day. I think actually, no, was it this morning? Yesterday, when you hassled my princess, what's the friend call it? My princess palace.
Yeah.
What'd you say? I think your response was when I sent the photo, that's cute. So,
oh man, I didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't. I just kind of went, is that a tub tray from like a Triton or something with an axle and then a swag on top, and what's that white? Was that your water pipes, or you had like this massive 150 mil PVC pipes coming out of it? I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
All right, so I don't even know how we got it, to be honest. I literally bought it in an auction. It was not registered. It was up like an 8-hour drive away, but it just happened to be at the same time my brother was coming back from a spearfishing trip up in Queensland. So he literally was driving past where it was housed for this auction. And we saw it, and it had an older rooftop tent. I switched it to just the pop-up because I wanted the aluminium quick one to get up for whatnot. But yeah, what he'd done is he'd made his own sort of camper trailer. So it is, it's a Hilux tub with a ARB canopy, and it's reinforced with a frame for the rooftop tent. And he's put on at the front, he's put a toolbox in there with it slide out cooking and plumbed up. So you've got your sink, and that's what that water's for. So on either side, you've got 2 hoses. One side is for the shower, and so a dual car hot tap. And then on the other side, you've got to, wash your hands and do whatever. So I'm actually going to get rid of the white PVC because obviously it's not potable and I'm not drinking out of it. And I want to have that option. So I'm going to put a tank up top, probably a black one, just to make it look a bit nicer in that sense. And there, but yeah, it's pretty sort of self-sufficient, but because it's the tub tray, it's nice and raised. So it's got that four-wheel drive ability and it came just as a steal. I think we paid, honestly, $4,000 for it.
What?
And yeah.
Are you serious?
No, I'm not joking. So how it happened was in the auction, we chucked on 3.5, I think. And it was a totally unplanned thing. And we just went, fuck, just throw it at it and see what happens. And they came back to us and said, mate, the guy wants 9. And we went, no chance. We were just seeing if we could pick it up. And we got the call back from the auctioneer going, oh, look, if you could go to 3.7 or 3.8, take it. And we ended up paying like 4.1 or 4.2 with auctioneer fees and all that sort of crap. But it was, $4,000. And I just went, this is insane, because it also came with bloody a 90 litre dual fridge freezer, brand new battery, generator. The tub's already got drawers in it. It's completely got everything you need just to go out straight away. There's a couple other things I'm missing, but we just went, hey, for that, it's look, it is a bit makeshift, I know that, but it's nice, it's comfy.
Yep.
It's it's not like yours. Yours obviously more custom.
Did you watch the video?
I didn't get a chance. I'm flat out at work at the moment, so I didn't even get the chance to have a look at it.
So the reason why I say yours is cute, I bought mine, and it's like a full steel enclosed trailer, and it was actually used for go-karts originally in Western Australia. A bloke I bought it off had actually put a gas strut door on the side that you would have seen in that photo, and there's a kitchen in that. So he put like this welded in this axle so that there's a bench that swings out as you open the door. Anyway, I put in full battery system. It was like 300 amps battery, solar. I can put slide my boat on top. I've got a 70-litre water tank, which is good because I can pump straight out of the lakes when I'm camping.
Yep.
And use that for my gas hot water showers and stuff like that. And I paid about, I think it was like $6,000 or $6,500 for that trailer. And it's got solid axle, everything you need. And I have taken in places where I'm happy to put my ute down, if you know what I mean. Like, if it squeezes through, and because it's solid steel, that tree might have hurt it a little bit, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I've got a full wraparound awning. I have been in torrential snow, thunderstorms, extreme winds, destroyed one of the King's 360-degree awnings with the winds, just pulled the poles out of the ground, and it just destroyed it. But it is a solid trailer, and it serves me well. I've got a stereo in it, the lights in the kitchen, you sit in front of the fire, have a bit of Coal to Wall playing in the background, and you're just set. And it tows all my gear. The only problem is it's too heavy. But unlike yours would be, I reckon, probably 700 kilos?
About 750.
Yeah.
Mine's whatever is in there.
Yeah, I reckon you can double mine without water.
Yeah. And look, that was why, like, when we got it and sort of unpacked it, like, I changed a few things over. They had, like, the fold-out tent. Got rid of that. I've just, when I was up at the hunters' campfire, boys, their hunt camp, I smashed the window, just a rock kicked up, and obviously the canopy, one of the windows. So I'm ripping them out, and I'm just going to, Sikaflex in a metal panel just to keep that, so it doesn't happen again. So I've got a few slight changes.
Acrylic, man. Put in acrylic.
Well, I thought that, but then I'm on a tight time frame, and I was just like, if my brother's a metal roofer and does construction, so it's really easy for him just to buy it, come over and just trim it to size straight away, and we can just do it instantly. Whereas I've been trying, when I say been trying, I just haven't done it. I've been wanting to, I was going to go acrylic and then go the Perspex option, but I just think this is going to be so much easier and go that way. So that's, for $50, I think it would cost us. I was like, then I'd have to stuff around, find someone to cut it to size, get a template, all that sort of stuff. So that's the plan at the moment. And saying that, I keep saying these things because I'm actually adding to the metal frame. I've got a shower tent now, so I can just pull it out because we do say it's the family one. I'm not gonna lie, I just take it hunting. So I'm really doing things that make my life a lot easier. But the wife did say she wanted somewhere to change, and because the rooftop tent's not great for that. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to weld on a couple of brackets. I'm going to have a nice little shower tent on the side. We got the awning on the other side. So it's getting a couple of changes here and there, getting where I really want it. But in fairness, I actually really wanted one like yours. That was the original plan, is to do something similar to what you've pretty much said, is that I wanted to have the false floor, be able to put the tent underneath, pull that out, have the system set up, have the fridge in there, access from both sides and behind, have it fully enclosed, because originally that was the idea. I'm short on space in the garage, and I've got the gym in there. I want to get everything out. I don't want any racking in there. I want to sort of expand the gym, if anything. And I was like, well, if it's in a sealed trailer, then happy days. That's, all that storage just sitting there in the trailer. That's a massive win. That's where I went originally, but this popped up, and for the price and what came with it, we worked it out. The side stuff alone was $6,000 new.
Yeah, right.
So for buying it for $4,000, I was just like, this is just, it's a no-brainer. Like, that was, look, we have added on to it, but yeah, I don't want to go a caravan just yet. I feel once you go a caravan.
Caravan takes away from the experience, man. Like, I still use my swag. Like, I've got that set up there, and I have my double-sized swag, and me and the missus are in that, and then we set up a proper sized tent for the kids when they're down. And that's all we need, because, first of all, a rooftop camper or swag or whatever you want to call it is no good for me, because once the fire's in front of me and I finish fishing for the day, there's no way I'm climbing a ladder to get into bed.
Or when, the worst is when if you've had a beer or two and you got to pee during the night. That's coming down the ladder. That does suck. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, look, I have a habit of, when I'm away, I always take a lamb roast up with me, and sometimes it's not a good wake up call. So the swag's good for that. But yeah, look, you got to keep it simple and everything. And most of the back of my trailer is just like storage space.
Yeah.
I've also I run my fridges. I got a big fridge that sits in the back of my trailer because I go away for 3 weeks over New Year's. Yeah, so nice. I take up the supplies. So I've got 2 fridges with me, emergency gear, tools and shit like that. You never know when you're going to need it.
Yep.
But just keep it simple and have the luxuries in your trailer, and just make sure you protect it from the elements, because we all know what it can be like when you're out there for a while. It can just turn from one end to the other real quick.
Oh yeah, I remember I was down in one. Oh, where was it? Breadbow sounds right. Down south, and it was a paid hunting property, bush block, no great area to camp, just surrounded by big gum trees. And I was sort of looking at it, and the first night, it was just like the wind was unbelievable. And I was cooking dinner, and I sort of found as best I could where I was sort of looking, going, I think that's, there's a lot of widow makers around here. I need to be careful of dropping branches. And within 100 metres, in the space of literally 5 minutes, 2 trees or big ass branches came down. They're just crunching. I'm just like, it's getting heavier. This is crazy. This is not great. So I ended up, luckily enough, I got out of there and just found at the start of the property and just stayed there, because I was just like, this is not great. But yeah, it can change so quickly, and it's something to be super mindful. It's the only one I do worry about with that rooftop tent, being aluminium, is it's on struts, and I don't know how, if it's a real heavy wind just in the right direction, would it sort of push it closed. There is a pole inside that holds it, but I don't know how great it is. Mine seems to fall off every now and then, so it's right. But yeah, I mean, hey, look, I've got the swag. I do like the swag. I do miss the swag. It's easier for this, and it, off the ground is nice as well. I don't know, it's something I want the kids to be camping. I know one of my best mates just bought a caravan, but I don't want to go down that path just yet. I want the kids to experience the tent and the swag, and I don't want to go that caravan route just yet. Maybe when I'm 60.
Yeah, well, when you get older, you can understand and appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%.
Why you'd want to have a caravan, an off-road caravan. But I think as long as I can, I'm going to have my swag. And I mean, I've woken up and my whole outside of the swag is just mud halfway up because the rain has come down so hard. It's just sloshed up everywhere. I've had, spiders and God knows what else sneak in there. And it's all part of the experience. You've got to appreciate it, because you're in the nature after all. And how far do you want to be glamping?
Yes. It's that fine line, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm on that line now.
Yeah, it's a tricky one of where's the overstep. It's like I want to be comfortable so it's enjoyable, but I also want the experience. I don't want it like I'm, at home.
I mean, you might as well just have the caravan there, flick the telly on, and not look out your window at the beauty that's around you.
Yes,
what's
and
the
I think
point?
that's easy. It's an easy trap.
Yeah,
and that's the one I'm mindful of. Is I don't want to be just going to caravan parks and plugging into electricity and just that's not what I'm wanting to do. I want nature. That's the whole idea of this. I want my kids exposed to nature. That's the journey. That's the experience in the whole reason you're going out there. In my opinion, anyway.
I don't think you're in nature unless you're fearing for your life. Like you're like laying in your swag and the wind picks up. It's like, oh shit, is that one going to fall on me? Or, like you're looking at the kids going, how slippery were those rocks again? Or, like just those little things that it's like, you're always on that alert because you're actually in nature, and nature can be scary. And that's the beauty of it. Like the unknown, the appreciation of the unknown. It's just as scary as it can be, like being out in the middle of the lake and it just turns on you and you're about to flip your boat or something like that. When you get back and you settle down for the day, that cathartic response, it's like, I'm here. And, at the end of my 3-week trip over the New Year's, I almost cry every time I've got to come home because I go from, in the middle of summer, I go from that beautiful lake country to home here in the Derwent Valley, which is quite often rather hit by the summer, and it's all just brown, dead dirt, and it just kills you coming home from that type of experience. It's completely different.
It's no, I get it, and look, I also think the memories, I still like one of the vivid ones is the first trip we took my son. I've got twins now, but they're before them, and just when I had my son, he was only young, 3 months maybe. We went out camping, and we went down to Braidwood, and it was in not summer, but it was not close to winter. But we didn't realise how cold the bloody nights got. And we had a 3-season tent, and then we that was a dead set. Oh, God, it was cold. I had to get the little fella and bring him in my sleeping bag, and I pretty much laid there all night just trying to keep him warm because we just went, I didn't realise how it dropped so quickly. And then that's the experience. And then my wife, when she was pregnant with him, we were down south somewhere too. Now, I think it was Mogo maybe, and we had the air mattress, again, the 3-season tent. Didn't realise how cold of a night it got, and it was that cold. We were just stinging. I had to go into town to get some woolen bloody blankets to try and block out that cold coming through the air mattress but we look at that and go, that just was the experience. Like if it was if we just went away and nothing happened or there was nothing there, we wouldn't remember it. Like I don't remember the really good camping trips when nothing went sort of wrong or like I think they just blend into that sort of thing. But when something like that happens and it's a story, it's something funny that you chat about and look back on and go, bloody hell, we stuffed up there, but it was, hey, we survived. It was funny. We were never in danger, but like it was just part of that experience and that, something to have a laugh about and reminisce. I love that side of things. But
if nothing bad happens when you're camping, you probably should go camping because that's the fun of it, isn't it? Like, you come back and go, holy shit, can't believe that happened.
Yeah, and it is. I enjoy that side of it, I must admit. But, mate, all right, we've got to get into your lever action. You told me that's you're a big lever man. Tell us how, why? Like, I'm not against them, but they wouldn't be my go-to. I love a bolt.
Look, I have a Lithgow LA102 6.5, and it is a great gun. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever, besides the fact it's heavy.
Yep.
It depends on where you are in application, like most things. Like, so I'll take my 300 Browning lever action for those long walks, because in a day and a half, I took my young sister with me, and in a day and a half, with 3 trips, we racked up almost 20 kilometres. So that's down, sit, back, three of those, almost 20 kilometres, which is a fair bit. And when you've got that rifle on your back and you have to think about what happens if you get something and everything else too. So, and if I had that Lithgow, you really feel that on your back. I find with the lever actions, everyone's different, and it depends on your stance, where you're sitting, kneeling, if you're stump shooting or whatever. Stump shooting with a lever can be a bit of a problem depending on how big the stump is, obviously, as opposed to a bolt. But I find that it's more comfortable for me. I feel safer with it. Lighter, because it's 3-round mag. I don't have the 10-round mag for it, so really you should only be having one shot, one kill anyway, so you don't need 10-round mags. So yeah, and then I've got like the Winchester 94-22 Magnum. And that's just a good roo gun for me. Most of the roo we have down here are quite small, so you don't really need to have like a 243 or anything like that, like some of the blokes up in the mainland do.
Yep.
I just love the feel of lever action. You can just take a shot, not move anything other than your wrist. So you're not having to move your hand away from the trigger, bolt, cycle, come back down, put your hand back. You're just down, up. You can see exactly where you're aiming for the whole time, depending on your scope, obviously.
Yep.
And it's just a quick, clean, easy cycle. And that's what I appreciate about it. And who doesn't love a good old country and western movie, the old lever actions. I've got a 30-30 Ranger. It's a great gun. It's just got a red dot on it, and it's great to be up at the range and just, 100 yard, just ting, ting, ting. It's just so easy. You couldn't do that with a bolt action. Even with a straight pull. It's just not going to happen for you, not as cleanly, smoothly. And I'm really excited about the 94-22 LR coming out from Winchester, the new one they've just released. I really think I'm going to get one of those, even though the missus said to me, if I buy a gun, I have to spend the same amount on her.
Well, that goes back to that old, saying, I hope the wife never sells my guns for what I told her I'd pay for them. So it's one of those. So it's,
it was funny, actually. She implemented that rule after I bought the BLR 300. And the next gun I got after that was a Gammo replay air rifle.
Yeah.
And it was I think $600 or something. I was like, thank God that came in after, because I would have been screwed. that Browning cost me a better part of $2,000. So, yeah.
I am hanging for tax time. Like, I know we've just hit it. We're recording this into the new financial year, and I've got the tax appointment booked in to go through it, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just hanging. I really hope it comes back with enough for me to get the Hick Micro Alpex. I just want to get that for the day-night scope. I'm sold on it. Everything I watch, all the feedback, I really want to have a crack at it, and I'm just hoping, because I want the one with the laser rangefinder.
Yeah.
I sort of went, usually that's my gun fund. And I go, all right, yep, I'll get a new gun. But then now I'm sort of like, I really want that. I've got the thermal spotter, which I absolutely love. And now I'm like, well, I need something on the rifle. I want to get rid of the torch, as in, the spotlight.
Yeah.
I want to go down that path, and I think this is the way to go, because I don't want to spend that money on the thermal scope. I'm not there yet, and I don't have the access to get out as often for that. So just having something that's in between, get me out of jail, but actually looks like an unbelievable product. That's where I'm thinking it's going to head. That's the plan anyway.
It's a real hard choice when you go up to that level. Like, you want to get away from your spotlights, you want to go thermal or infrared or something like that. Where do you go? There's so many options, and I've been trying to decide for ages, and I'm thankful that I've been messaging a bloke from, I think it was Gunsmoke, Tasmania. And I'm like, man, I need like a cheap setup. I've just got to have one. And he's like, he sends me a message like, how about something like this? How about something like that? And it just kills me, the price of them. I mean, like, you'll get your refund back, and after the tax man takes his share, you'll probably look at it and go, well, I can probably get 5 boxes of ammo, maybe. I can't get that scope. Yes. But, yeah, you're paying sometimes 2 to 3 times the cost of your rifle for these scopes.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And you can appreciate the technology in them.
Oh, they're brilliant.
Yeah. unreal. Like some of the videos you see, like from Hunt the Night and Night Force, and they are just unreal.
Yeah.
But I cannot justify that money.
This is my big thing, is I've always gone thermal. I wanted a thermal, and I don't regret it in the slightest. The handheld, I've got the Hick Micro Griffin. I think it's a 35 LQ, maybe something like that, or GQ, and it's brilliant. Like we were out the other night, and I'm still in awe of it. Like I like playing with it. Like I was looking at cows at 400 meters, and being able to see and know what they are, that's bloody awesome. Being able to range them, even better. And then I was like, okay, I don't get out that much. I don't have the access to get out that much. I want the option, but I want something that's not going to break the bank, because I can't justify putting a $6 or $7 grand scope on. I just can't do it. I don't use it enough, and I won't use it enough. That's the problem. And I get people do it, and good luck to you. Hey, if you're in that position and you're going to use it, go for it. Go nuts. But I can't. So I feel that's like the compromise, but it's not going to be shitty quality. It's going to be good, and I'll be able to do everything that I want it to do. And then if things change, then maybe down the track. But yeah, that's where I'm pretty sold on it. But in saying that, let's wait and see what comes back. Because if it comes back and I'm getting like $700 and it's a $2 grand scope, it's like, all right, might have to put that on the back burner for a little bit.
How do thermal scopes and everything work in New South Wales? Because down here, technically, they are counted as a light, and so for spotlighting, you need a permit to spotlight wallaby down here, for instance. You cannot shoot deer an hour after dark here. So, I'm not sure how it works in other states, but effectively, I want one just for wallaby, because I love my wallaby patties and sausage rolls and things like that, and it just makes a hell of a lot easier than trying to drive up and down the hills around where I live to try and just get 6 roo.
Yeah.
So how does it work over there?
We're pretty lucky. Well, you can look at it two ways, I suppose. We can shoot spotlight, like deer, roo, spotlight. If you got the tags for roos on the property, you're good. You can, whatever number you can remove. You can do it under spotlight. You can do it with the thermal overnight. No issues whatsoever. Same as deer. So you can hunt deer, shoot deer at night, spotlight, thermal on private property. Obviously not public, or public's only during the day. And this is the interesting one that I was speaking to a bloke from the DPI in regards to this, because it's a very grey area and their rules haven't really changed too much to accommodate the thermal. And you can't use spotlights overnight, but thermals not so much. And they've actually gone to allow you to use more devices on public land. So you can now use a drone, you can use your thermal during the day. But that's the grey area of a night, because if you're viewing through the night, you're technically sort of hunting and scouting, which you're not allowed to do. So it's a real tricky one that I don't think the rules for them on public land have caught up to the technology just yet. But as far as private goes, you're good to go up here, as long as what you're shooting, as I said, roos need to be on permit. Deer or not, you can go and whack them. Go nuts if you want. Like it's completely up to you, but it can be done under thermal, spotlight, whatever, as long as you got the permission from the property owner.
Yeah, right. Isn't it interesting that thermals, I think, are more safer at night than shooting with a standard scope during the day, because you can tell, the animal, if it's a sheep, if it's a cow, just by using that thermal scope at night.
It's got to be a good quality one though.
Yeah, like obviously, you're 320 plus ones with your resolution, so that makes a hell of a difference. But it's incredible that you can shoot during the day and that might be a deer out there and you take a shot, whereas if you had that same shot at night, you could definitely tell with that thermal scope.
I don't know if it's the animal. I feel it's more like the boundaries and what's around it. But in saying that, the thermal, geez, it's good. Like we were using it on property the other day, and not only can you tell the difference between the animals, but you can see the layout of the land easy. So you can definitely see you got a shooting. And we were there in pitch black, and there was no issues whatsoever. That's, I don't know how, but I'll tell you what, the thermal in the day, I will say this. I was out at a mate's just grabbing firewood, so I took it out, and I was having a bit of a look around their property, and I literally just found animals that I couldn't see with the naked eye.
Yeah, right.
And it was not midday. We're not talking midday. I think that would really make it hard because obviously everything's heated up and are relatively the same temperature. But it was 8 a.m. Sun had been up for an hour, maybe a bit longer. Definitely still chilly, so the animals stood out. But, geez, it was good. Like animals I couldn't see, I was seeing through the thermal, and then I'm looking for them going, I still can't see these things. Going back to the thermal, going, they're definitely there. So, like, yeah, I think they're a really good piece of gear that I feel is safer. Imagine having a bait station in a national park. We've got a massive problem with Roosa in the national park down on the coast. Imagine having a bait station, shooting of a night with a thermal. I can't see how that's not safe, especially have a dedicated shooting lane, bait them in, have the thermal there. I can't see how that's not a safe option to use.
And it's not like you're shooting up at a hilltop where the bullet may go for another kilometre or two after. It's like...
Correct.
It's safe that there's a backdrop.
Yes.
And you're going to be ethical with it too.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem I have is because I have a Vortex and Zero Tech, and even on that dusk in Tasmania, it can be so quick, so brutal that you're going from watching a deer to nothing but haze.
Yeah.
So quick. And that thermal is just going to pick it up that whole time.
Yes.
That's an absolutely incredible difference.
Well, that's what I was looking at that Hick Micro, because I've seen so many videos, and I had a pro shooter from, I think, WA. He sent me some video footage of him using it, and he got his mobile, and he's showing me it's pitch black with the mobile, and then he puts it in the Apex to show me what he's seeing. That was without an infrared light, and Jesus Christ, you could see everything. And I was sitting there going, how good is this? Because I'm with you. I've been out there and you've still got shooting light and you can't see. And that's where I was chatting to the DPI bloke and saying, well, so could I have it on and I can then see better? Isn't that more ethical than me having a shot at an animal that I can't really see? And he sort of responds to that, well, if you can't sort of see properly, even though it's shooting light, should you be taking the shot? And I was like, yeah, well, that makes sense too, because you've got to do everything to put the animal down humanely and safely. Okay, I see both sides of it. But, yeah, it's just – and they're not that heavy. The Apex is like 1.1. My Zero Tech is – I think it's 900 or close to, maybe a tad over. So it's not much in it, and it just opens up a little bit more time, a bit safer, a bit better. I don't know. I'm probably just convincing yourself here, just trying to talk myself into doing it.
Nah, look, I reckon I'd feel safe because, like, in some areas, you don't know where other people might have come from. And if you got a thermal, you're going to be able to tell if there's something there that shouldn't be there. You know, like if you're in a marsh and you're waiting for a couple of deer to come out down a typical path and someone else is, you know, behind that tree line thinking they're going to come out where you are, you're going to pick them up with a thermal, aren't you?
Yeah.
Whereas typically you wouldn't.
Yep.
So I think it's safer in some ways, but it's kind of scary too because some of the technology, like watching on your phone while you're actually waving your gun out there, you can pretty much take a shot looking at your phone. I mean, if you weren't so scared about recoil breaking your wrist, you could pretty much freehand it just by looking at your phone. That's a bit of a concern, I think.
I think about that and think, we were talking earlier about poisoning and all the things that we could face, like, you know, I think drones with thermal and...
They're already experimenting with that anyway. I mean...
I get that, but that coming in numbers and, you know, AI being able to just track and pick up the animals and just...
Culling with thermal.
Yep.
And drones.
And potentially having AI run it. So you don't even have a user operator. We talk about financial costs. That is something up there that going, hey, that gets rid of these choppers. It gets rid of jobs. You have this running, especially if they start to get down the AI track, which I think they were talking about even China might even have it on theirs that they run it and they can identify, and it's so much quicker than any human.
They're already using that to identify flowers, insects and everything else to calculate numbers and growth and repercussions of these numbers. And I mean, we are very close to a very disturbing Black Mirror episode, I think.
or the Terminator. That's what I think. At what stage does it sit there and go, you guys are the problem? You know, like nature would thrive without you. You're out.
Oh, man. the possibilities are endless, aren't they?
Look, in one way it is. It's also exciting times to be alive. Like I sort of reflect on it and go, I don't think at any time in history has more change occurred, and I think is going to continue to occur. And just being alive to see all that is pretty exciting when you think about it. Maybe not the greatest. I'm a bit of a, I'd love to. Well, I sort of sometimes love to be back in the old days, but then I think I probably would have died off pretty early. So it's may not be what it was all conned up.
See, Tasmania, with my job, I go around to a lot of people's houses. I work in houses, and I get to talk to a lot of the aged population, and I get to hear the stories when they built the hydro dams, the pipelines, what it was like in the hydro camps with the Polish and that, and it was a completely different time. And you hear about the hunting stories and the trips they used to take, and these guys were hard. They're not like us with our little glamp setups and
exactly
princess castles. But, and the stories you hear, you're never ever going to have those again. And they were trips. They weren't like, oh, we're going to go for a drive for 4 hours, go up there, stay for the weekend. They were proper trips.
Yeah.
And a bloke who was my old next door neighbour, he's 78. And every year we go away together. Every summer we go for that trip. We go trout fishing, and I've recently taken him away for a hunt. And he always, talks about the old days, trout that were 22 pound, and you wouldn't catch anything less than 10 pound, and proper good times, and people falling in fires. I mean, that still obviously happens with some people, but proper larrikin stuff that happened in the old days. And you didn't have phones around, you only had the people's voices and memories to carry on the stories. And I think technology is kind of taking away from that, ruining those experiences. And it's a bit disappointing in some ways, but it's also funny to have photos of people and videos falling out of their princess setups because they're too drunk.
That hasn't happened to me yet, so I'm hoping it stays that way. But no, I get that, and it's the pros and cons, like everything. It's having this little computer in your hand. But I was flicking through things the other day and just looking at all these photos of my kids, and from the last couple of years, and just reminiscing on some of those things and showing the wife and going, it's awesome. I get that you got your photo books and things like that, but I just feel that way more photos and memories are captured now, and that things that I forgot about, which I'm very grateful that I was able to capture it and it popped up, or even social media, Facebook popping up with what happened 12 years ago. And, those little things, some of the things I completely just don't think about anymore, and they prompt it and then go, that was such a good time. So it's a bit of it's all pros and cons, isn't it?
But there's nothing better than finding that photo. I think it was the last trip we had. The boy caught a trout bigger than my biggest trout that I've ever caught, And he was so proud of it, and look at his face, and he was filleting himself and everything. And just that look on their face of pure achievement and joy, this is the best thing ever. It's great to capture that.
Yeah.
But at the same point, you get lost in it too, because you're always taking those photos, and
yes.
You eventually you'll scroll back and go, oh, how good was that? But it gets lost.
Well, you're present for the moment.
Yeah. That's right. And it's a bit of a hard line to draw.
Yep.
And it's like when you go for that hunt and you get that perfect shot. You're there in that moment, and you remember it because you weren't looking at your phone. It's captured there. You remember everything about it. You remember how shit the weather was and how hard that shot was and all those things, because you're living hard in that moment. And that's kind of taken away from us today with the technology that we have.
Yes.
I think that's the line we've got to look at very carefully.
It is, and it's something I try to do. I try and make a rule that I get home and I don't touch my phone until the kids have gone to bed, to try and set the example for them, but also to play with them and be there for them. And, it's something I'm mindful of, the presence, not the presence, be present. That's what I want to be. And it can be challenging. It's technology is just it's everywhere, and it's such a big part of our lives nowadays. And I think it's going to get worse. So doing things, and I've got a couple of mates that have just jumped off social media and things like that. I think it's great. Really, and I'm not very big on social media. I don't get on there often, but it is one of those tricky things. It's just navigating this different world that's ever evolving and changing. And I think that's going to constantly be what we are doing in every aspect of our life. And mate, I think that's a really good note to wrap it up and just say thank you for, I'm not down in Tassie. It's the only state I haven't been to in Australia, actually, so I have to fix that up. But having people like yourself down there flying the flag for us shooters and hunters, and it's a lot of hard work. You probably don't get the accolades or the thanks for doing it, so thank you, because we do need people out there like yourself giving it a red hot crack for the community.
Yeah, look, I'm just doing what I can. I'm just a typical bloke. I just do my work. I do what I can on the side. Run for an election or advocate for people. We just need more people to stand up and make noise. And when someone does something wrong, look at what's really happened, not jump up and down. When someone does something right, congratulate them. It goes both ways. You've got to have the good with the bad. Just start being more active instead of, being picky and shitting on people for doing something, or even when people are trying to do the right thing, you shit on them for, trying to do that because they're not doing it the way you would. Or it's really hard. And have a little bit more respect for those people running for elections. I mean, whether they're in a party you don't like or whatever, it's really tolling, taxing. Just show some support for those people that are trying to make a difference. It's the best thing I can say. And like, you got people out there that work within Shooters Union. They're all volunteers doing it for the right reason. I talk to them quite often. It's not easy to do all the things on your volunteer time, as like you're trying to do this after the kids go to bed. It's not easy. Yeah. It all takes a toll. So I think people need to be a bit more open-minded and start supporting the people that stand up for you. If you don't agree with something, send a message and say, look, I don't agree with you, instead of attacking them on social media. And it's not that hard, is it?
I think the lines of communication are just so easy to just jump on and post. To have that dialogue and even a message, sometimes it doesn't come across properly. But being able to talk, and that's what I love about the podcast. And I'm very open about it. I definitely want to get someone on from the AJP. I want to have a chat and try and see where they're at. They've got completely different ideology to me, but I want to have that conversation. I want it to be respectful. I want to be able to sort of go, how did you get there? Because I don't get it. I don't understand it in the slightest. Help me try and understand. I probably won't. But hey, you know what? I still want to have that conversation to find out and have that chat, because I think that happens too much in society, that people just go, you're polar opposite views, I don't even want to talk to you. And I'm not about that, and I do like the conversation and learning about people and having that. I might change my mind, I might not, but I'd rather be open to that conversation than not. And, it's one of the things I love about the podcast, talking to a range of people and, meeting a variety of people out there just doing their best and having a crack like yourself, and I love it. So I appreciate you giving up your time to come on, as you said. All those people out there volunteering, shout out to them. Keep doing it. You might not get the thanks, but we need you. And I'm a member of the Shooters Union, big supporter of them. I think they're doing great work. I just joined up ADA because I know they're fighting out there doing a good job. Yeah. Hey, do what you can. Some people can't financially do it. Cool. Maybe it's time you can, put up. I'm not great with time because of the family, but I'll do it in a different element. So, hey, do what you can. As you said, make some noise, make some positive noise, and back those that are having a crack and doing their best. So, good message to finish up.
Yeah, one good action creates another good action. So just flow on,
get the ball rolling.
Yeah, get onto it and support other shooters, and hopefully we can start being a bit better working together and achieving our goals that we want to see. Mate,
love it. Thanks again for coming on, and listeners, I hope you enjoyed this one. I know I have. So bye for now.
Thank you.
If you have a topic, guest, question, or any gear that you want to hear about on the podcast, shoot us an email, australianhuntingandbeyond@gmail.com. Alternatively, Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All the links are in the show notes. If you haven't already, make sure you give us a review and subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.